January 1st, 2005, the Austin Chronicle would put up an article as a follow-up to many stories. One of these stories would be the ACTV scandal that happened a few years ago, and Alex Jones was a prominent member of the revolt against the merger, and this would be the follow-up to that story. ACTV blows up. The endgame maneuvers for the Austin Music Network, see Top 10 Local Stories, ended up setting off a revolt among producers at Austin Community Television. After the Access Channel was tasked with babysitting AMN, as ACTV board members begin to contemplate unwisely and too publicly fundamental changes to the nation's oldest access TV operation. The channel's local stars, most notably the redoubtable Alex Jones, manufactured enough public outrage to maybe put the kibosh on such grand plans. On March 25th, Alex Jones would interview Eustace Mullins. Eustace Mullins was a conspiracy theorist and worked closely with Alex Jones and wrote many books. Eustace Mullins would come on to talk about 9/11 and other things. During this clip, Alex Jones would talk about an economic crash via the housing market. This clip would then be used to prove that he predicted this market crash and the government's involvement in it.
Revolution against the very same trash we fought in 1776. And he, of course, was the protege and I could call him, I guess, an adherent to Ezra Pound. What was he, the Nobel Prize-winning author, poet, who was imprisoned for being against the World War II. And Ezra Pound, ladies and gentlemen, and, of course, he was an expert on the New World Order and what was happening. And so we are going to have Mr. Mullins with us for the next hour, and we're going to discuss some of his definitive works and some of the incredible articles he's written, and we're going to take your calls. But I thought it was interesting to have Alan Greenspan coming out and saying, oh, you've overspent and you've got a big deficit and you're going to have a crash and the real estate bubble's going to pop. Well, the central bank has always done this before a recession or a depression. They cause it. They openly engineer it. They print the $5 trillion in the last 3 years. They flood the world with cheap dollars, fiat currency, and then they pose as the saviors. And I heard it, Eustace Mullins last night, basically talking about that on the Rick Adams show, and I called in. Listen, it's really good to have you on, Eustace.
Well, I'm certainly glad to be on your show again.
You bet. I'm glad we were able to get through the folks that keep trying to block us calling you.
Well, they have been. For the last 2 years, I can hardly receive a telephone call. I mean, they go to a lot of trouble and a lot of effort, but they seem to think it's worthwhile.
Well, I've had cases where I get really important phone calls, say from some of the biggest radio shows in the country, and they go, well, we left you messages, we sent you an email, they never get it.
Oh, yes. That's standard procedure.
Well, that must mean we're hurting them then, Eustace.
Oh, it is. It shows that they're hurting. You know, I was just talking to a friend of mine. The local court revoked my driver's license while I was in the nursing home for a stroke a few years ago. So this crazy judge calls my case, and of course I wasn't there. I told a relative to get a continuance, but instead he didn't do that. And so when my case was called, because I wasn't there, they revoked my license for failure to appear in court, which is the same thing they pulled on Randy Weaver in the ruckus out in Idaho.
Well, yeah, they don't tell you about it, and then you don't show up.
You're supposed to know somehow.
Well, it's just amazing, Eustace. We're about to go to break. When we come back, I want to talk about your awakening, what the Federal Reserve is, and then bring it into current context with how the Federal Reserve is really driving America into the ground, and also want to talk about your groundbreaking book about the Federal Reserve, sir, so please stay with us. Folks, we'll be right back with Eustace Mullins, and literally a living legend. And I know we have loaded phone lines coming up in about 20, 30 minutes or so. We'll get to Robert and Brian and Brett and many others. The toll-free number to join us is 800-259-9231. And we'll be back on the other side of this quick break. Stay with us.
The Genesis Communications Radio Network proudly presents The Alex Jones Show, because there's a war on for your mind.
Well, for stations that are just joining us here in the second segment of the last 5 minutes, we had Eustace Mullins on with us, who really is a living legend. And again, he was the protege of Ezra Pound, the Nobel Prize-winning author, who was better known for his poetry, less known for his expose of the international bankers and their plan for a one-world government through their central banks. And at almost 83 years of age, Eustace Mullins is working harder than he's ever worked. I was just talking to him during the break. He was telling me about that. And he literally, you can trace him back to being one of the fathers of the fight against the Federal Reserve, and he is with us, thank God, and fighting harder than ever. I hear him on the radio all the time. Eustace, good to have you back on with us.
Oh, I'm certainly glad to be here.
Eustace, with men like you and some of your contemporaries like Hutton Gibson, who I know you've met and are friends with, I hope that the younger generations can live up to the work you gentlemen have done.
Well, I hope they can. Ezra Pound was the hero of young people during the 1920s, and then they put the Iron Curtain down, and you never heard of him again.
Well, tell us how you woke up to the Federal Reserve, when you met Ezra Pound, what happened?
Well, I was going to Washington University in Lexington, Virginia, which was founded by George Washington, and Robert E. Lee became the president after the Civil War. And I was going to school there. It was a very fine school, but they didn't have an art department. So I moved up to an art school in Washington, D.C., and one of my professors there happened to be visiting Ezra Pound at St. Elizabeth's Hospital. And he was a dedicated liberal, but he admired Ezra for his work, and so he was helping him translate French poetry. And he insisted I should go and see Ezra Pound. And I said, what in the world would Ezra Pound talk to me about? And so he took me out there, and we hit it off right away. And I started visiting him every day. I have to tell my audiences that I got my education in the insane asylum, which is really true. I had been to 5 of the best universities in the United States, and I didn't learn one thing. But in a week at the St. Elizabeth's Insane Asylum, I heard more common sense than I'd ever heard in all the universities I've been to.
Well, he was an icon, so they couldn't put him really in prison. And so for preaching against the war and talking about how it was staged, they did what the Soviets would do. They just grabbed him and put him in the mental institution.
Oh, yes, that was a favorite technique of Stalin anyway.
When did they finally let Ezra Pound out?
They never let him out. I got him freed. I went to a congressman, and he went on the floor of Congress, and he said, why is the government holding this man? He'd been there 13 and a half years without trial, which, as you know, can't happen under our Constitution.
Well, it's now happening. The Supreme Court ruled they could. It doesn't mean it's...
Sure, it happens all the time.
It doesn't mean it's lawful, but the Charles T. Shell case, the arming dentist at Waco who saw them kill the people, he went public. 8 years ago, they grabbed him. He's been in solitary confinement, never gone to trial for Medicaid fraud, and they've been forcibly drugging him for 8 years.
Oh, my gosh. Well, I feel like I've been lucky when I hear about things like that. And Ezra Pound, because I don't think I could have survived one night at St. Elizabeth's.
What year when did you first meet Ezra Pound? What year was that?
1948, and I got him out in 1958, 10 years later. You see, he had a lawyer in New York named Julian Cornell who was supposed to represent him. And he represented him by never filing a single paper in his behalf. So I sat there for 10 years with him, and I took a friend of mine at a famous newspaper man named Rex Serpent Lampman, and so I introduced Rex to Ezra Pound, and he sat down and talked to him, and finally Rex said, well, you don't belong in here. And Ezra said, well, I don't know that. And he said, well, I'm going to do something about it. And Rex knew all the prominent people in Washington, D.C., so he found this congressman that owed him a favor, and he asked him to go on the floor of Congress. So he asked, why is the government holding this man? And they had no answer because they never had any case against him whatsoever.
Well, that's classic where lawyers get control of somebody's estate.
Oh, it is.
And then help commit them or don't defend them.
Well, usually they do things like that for money.
Alex Jones in 2005 excited that the prequel trilogy of Star Wars has finally come to the end with The Revenge of the Sith, released 2 days earlier, would then go on to his show, dressed up as multiple characters from Star Wars, and preach his normal gospel.
Destiny to be our slaves, worldwide neo-fascist plantation. Don't go to Infowars.com. Don't learn about the true secret societies that I, Lord Vader, am based on. Don't learn about the Order of Death. Don't learn why the Nazis wore the death heads on their helmets. Don't learn about Bohemian Grove. Just listen to my master as he tells you how government works and how it operates and how all of you will be much better off if you submit to the control of the New World Order. Look around you. All of the cameras, the face-scanning systems, the transponders going in your goods. It's all for your best interest. The police dressed in black helmets like the Nazis that I'm based on. Your police telling you that giving up liberty gives you security. This is the truth. Join us. Serve us. It is your destiny. Throughout history, Dark Lords have carried out terror attacks so their populations would come begging them to take their liberties for security. Don't listen to Thomas Jefferson and Benjamin Franklin. They said that if you give up liberty, you get tyranny. They were liars. They didn't know the power of the dark side. Don't listen to Alex Jones. Don't visit Infowars.com. Don't learn Lord Vader and Darth Sidious, my master, are based on real secret societies known as the Order of Death, now controlling the planet and launching our empire of world domination. Don't realize that that's why the Star Wars trilogy has made over $10 billion, because it speaks to something innately in our subconscious, in our collective unconscious, that deep down we know that evil forces are in control of our society and our world. Don't listen to those. Just join us and only think about yourself and only serve the New World Order. Take the yuppies. They've done an excellent job ignoring all the facts and going along with the decline of society. Take all the racist groups, the white supremacists, the Mexican supremacists, the black supremacists, engaging in their tribalism. Through divide and conquer, we have enslaved them all, while the empire becomes more and more powerful. I must leave you now because my master, Darth Sidious, is coming with a few words to you. Please, listen carefully. I will not repeat it again. All too easy to enslave you, you pathetic worms. You'll never resist the New World Order. You are our slaves. You are our slaves. You are our slaves. Now that we have released the final installment of the Star Wars 6 films, a lot of people have been pointing out on CBS News and Japan Today, as well as USA Today, that there's a lot of parallels between the despotic empire of the Star Wars universe and George Bush and the New World Order, their invasion of Iraq using a false pretext, manufactured terrorism. Those that have now had a chance to learn how my master scared the old republic into submission realize that anything that centralizes the power of the central state only serves those with dark intentions. But you fools have had a lack of vision. You've not truly realized your destiny to be slaves. Even now, as we issue national ID cards and tear away the last remnants of the republic in the United States, you're unable to see what's right in front of your face. Yes, it's true that George Lucas studied the occult. Yes, it's true that he looked at ancient mystery religions, and it's true that he realized that a secret society known as the Order of Death actually funded and supported Adolf Hitler, and that he was a member. Yes, it's true that Skull and Bones at Yale is only one chapter of this Germanic Visigothian death cult. And yes, it's true that George Lucas modeled the uniforms of the stormtroopers after the SS and the military of the German armies, and that even my suit, my life support system, is based on that of a field marshal's uniform from World War I, and my helmet itself is based on that of the Nazi Kurzel helmet, now worn by the U.S. military. Ah, yes, it was all too easy. You see, my master, controlling Count Dooku, you can call him Osama bin Laden if you would like, was able to carry out terrorist attacks. And then you came begging to my master, the Chancellor, the President, asking him to take your liberties, asking you to take your freedoms for security. And now we're tearing aside the last vestiges of the old republic, and a powerful empire where you will slave as our minions is rising in its place. This is the true power of the dark side. Join us. Become our slaves. Have you looked around you? How your riot police dress in black helmets and black masks with black armor, very similar to mine. That's because George Lucas based his nightmare images on secret police and executioners and inquisitors and thieves of old. The archetypal image of the dark sorcerer, covered in J.R.R. Tolkien's Lord of the Rings, the ring wraith, is now upon you. Our prison camps are built. The cameras are going up on the street corners. The gun confiscation will soon begin. You can never resist the power of the New World Order. Join us. Take your destiny as slaves. Never resist the New World Order. Global government is yours.
My young apprentice knows well how foolish you are. Our terrorist attacks have done quite nicely, and now you come to us like the pathetic worms you are, begging us to take your liberties for a security you will never get. And as we squeeze tighter and tighter, you will beg us to take even more of your rights. You will never learn the history of government-sponsored terror. You will never learn the history of the order of death. Even with stylized films like Star Wars that represent our order, you will never discover the true depths of the New World Order. Everyone who wants peace will be called an enemy of the Republic. Everyone that stands up for decency and honor will be called traitors, while we, the original traitors to the Republic, will be in control. We will do whatever we want, whenever we want. And our agents will cloak themselves, as Dark Lords always have, in the black mask, the black cloak, the black hood, the black helmet. All around you are the archetypal symbols of dark empire and tyranny and control, but you're too foolish to understand it. You have a small window of opportunity to resist our designs, but soon, my minion, George Bush, and his controllers will carry out new, even more devastating attacks that dwarf 9/11, that will be minuscule in comparison to the horror that we're about to bring forward on you and your people. You'll never figure it out until it's too late. And by then, our control will be complete. Now's the time for you to submit and to give in to your fear to us, to serve us. It would be better for you to join the Sith, as this movie portrays us. But it would be better for you to join the true order of death that I am the embodiment of. Don't ever listen to Alex Jones. He has been studying our activities far too long. He understands that our sinister group loves destruction. He understands that death and destruction, that the slaughter of innocents is our sacrament. He knows far too well that aircraft carriers and hydrogen bombs and fighter aircraft are our cathedrals. He is warning far too many people. But my apprentice and others are moving forward and are on his tail, and will soon defeat him and his kind, unless you pathetic rabble, take action and become the leaders that you truly are. But again, our controlled media, the empire-controlled media, has been far too effective, manipulating and conditioning the public to accept giving up liberty for security. Many pathetic souls actually believe the bills that we pump out on a daily basis. But again, as our propaganda grows more absurd, more and more people are waking up to the true nature of it. More and more people are resisting it. And if they continue to resist it, it will be certainly necessary for my agents to carry out more terror attacks. And you'll sit there and blame my puppets even if the government gets caught. You must always realize that the order of death that you know as the Sith uses frontmen and puppets who they hang out to dry. The Sith is always in the shadows.
In mid-year, Alex Jones would bring on a new young spry member of the team, who would then, with the help of Alex Jones, produce a new film. That man is Jason Burmese.